Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy the story. Remember to like and subscribe. And now the story.
It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and the whole block was buzzing with excitement. Jake, the resident who had organized the block party, was busy setting up the tables, chairs, grills, and speakers on his front lawn. He had invited all his neighbors to join him for a potluck barbecue, music, games, and fun. He wanted to foster a community spirit, and to make some new friends. He had moved in a few months ago, and he had noticed that the neighborhood was very quiet and dull. He rarely saw anyone outside, and he felt lonely and bored. He thought that a block party would be a great way to break the ice, and to bring some life and joy to the block. He had printed out some flyers and distributed them to every house on his block, and he had received many positive responses. He was surprised and delighted by how many people were interested and willing to participate. He had a list of volunteers, food donations, and activities planned. He was looking forward to a wonderful day. However, not everyone was happy with his initiative. There was one person who was determined to ruin his party, and to make his life miserable. That person was Mr. Smith, the president of the Homeowners Association. Mr. Smith was a grumpy and greedy old man, who had lived on the block for over 20 years. He was obsessed with the HOA rules and regulations, which he had written himself, and which he enforced with an iron fist. He charged exorbitant fees and fines for any minor violation, and he used the money to fund his lavish lifestyle. He had no friends or family, and he hated anyone who had fun or happiness. He had seen Jake's flyers, and he had been outraged. He had called Jake and told him that he was in violation of the HOA rules and regulations, and that he had to cancel his event immediately, or face a hefty fine and possible legal action. He had said that the block party was disturbing the peace and quiet of the neighborhood, and that it was a nuisance and a hazard. Jake had been stunned. He had no idea that there were such rules, and he couldn't believe that Mr. Smith was being so unreasonable. He had tried to explain that he had only good intentions, and that most of the neighbors were supportive of his idea. He had asked him to reconsider, and to let him go ahead with the party. Mr. Smith had refused. He had said that the rules were the rules, and that he had the final say. He had said that he would not tolerate any disobedience or disrespect, and that he would make sure that Jake would regret his decision. He had hung up, and left Jake speechless and angry. Jake had felt like giving up, but he had decided to fight back. He had called some of his friends and allies on the block, and told them what had happened. They had been outraged, and agreed to stand by his side. They had decided to go ahead with the party, and to confront Mr. Smith and the HOA board together. They had also decided to take it a step further, and to try to get rid of Mr. Smith. They had learned that Mr. Smith had been embezzling the HOA funds, and that he had been blackmailing and bribing the other board members. They had gathered some evidence, and they had contacted a lawyer. They had a plan to expose him, and to oust him from his position. They had also learned that Mr. Smith had a secret weakness, and that he had a fear of clowns. They had hired a professional clown, and they had instructed him to follow Mr. Smith around, and to scare him and annoy him. They had hoped that this would distract him, and make him lose his composure. The party started at noon, and soon the block was filled with laughter, music, and joy. People mingled, ate, drank, played, and danced. They also signed a petition, demanding that the HOA board resign and dissolve. They felt a sense of solidarity and empowerment, and they thanked Jake for bringing him together. However, their happiness was short-lived. At 1 p.m., Mr. Smith arrived, accompanied by 2 police officers. He looked furious, and pointed at Jake. "Officer, this is the man who is responsible for this illegal and disruptive event. He has ignored my warnings and violated the HOA rules. I want him arrested and fined, and I want this party to end right now." The officers approached Jake, and asked him to explain himself. Jake calmly told them his side of the story, and showed him the flyers, the list of volunteers, and the petition. He also showed him the evidence of Mr. Smith's corruption and fraud, and the lawyer's contact information. He said that he was not doing anything wrong, and that he was only trying to create a positive and friendly atmosphere in his neighborhood. The officers looked at Mr. Smith, and then at the crowd. They saw that the party was peaceful and orderly, and that the people were happy and supportive of Jake. They also saw that Mr. Smith was alone and isolated, and that he had no evidence or witnesses to back up his claims. They realized that he was lying and cheating, and that he had no authority to stop the party. They turned to Mr. Smith, and said, "Sir, we don't see any grounds for arresting or fining this man. He is not breaking any laws, and he has the consent and cooperation of his neighbors. He is exercising his right to free speech and assembly, and he is not causing any harm or nuisance to anyone. In fact, we have reason to believe that you are the one who is breaking the law, and that you are the one who is causing harm and nuisance to this community. We have received a complaint from a lawyer, who has evidence of your embezzlement and blackmail. We are going to take you in for questioning, and we are going to investigate your case. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed for you. Do you understand these rights?" Mr. Smith was speechless and pale. He couldn't believe that the officers were arresting him, and that Jake had exposed him. He felt terrified and cornered, and he tried to escape. He pushed the officers away, and ran towards his car. However, he didn't get far. As he reached his car, he saw a clown waiting for him. The clown had a big red nose, a colorful wig, and a huge smile. He also had a pie in his hand, and a horn in his pocket. He looked at Mr. Smith, and said, "Hi, Mr. Smith. I've been looking for you. I have a special delivery for you. It's from your friends on the block. They wanted to say thank you for being such a great neighbor. Here, have some pie." The clown threw the pie at Mr. Smith's face, and honked his horn. Mr. Smith screamed, and fell to the ground. He was covered in whipped cream, and he felt a panic attack coming. He hated clowns, and he hated pie. He felt like he was having a nightmare, and he wished he could wake up. The crowd cheered and applauded, and hugged Jake. They thanked him for standing up to Mr. Smith, and for organizing the party. They said that he was a hero, and that they would always support him. They also said that they would continue to fight for their rights, and to challenge the HOA board. They said that they were a family, and that they would stick together. Jake felt a surge of emotion, and tears welled up in his eyes. He thanked them for their kindness and courage, and said that he was proud to be their neighbor. He said that he loved them all, and that he hoped that they would always stay united and happy. He said that this was the best day of his life, and that he would never forget it. The party continued until the evening, and then the people cleaned up and went home. They exchanged phone numbers, email addresses, and hugs. They promised to keep in touch, and to plan more events and activities. They also vowed to reform the HOA, and to elect new and better representatives. They felt hopeful and optimistic, and they looked forward to a brighter future. Jake watched them leave, and smiled. He felt a warm glow in his heart, and a peace in his mind. He realized that he had achieved his goal, and that he had fostered a community spirit. He also realized that he had made a difference, and that he had changed his neighborhood for the better. He felt grateful and fulfilled, and he closed his door with a sigh of contentment.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.